Hello, my name is Zim, and welcome back to my channel on the final Shingeki day of Season 3, Part 2. It feels damn good to be at this point, and I'm really excited to, get to this. That last episode, Attack Titan, Shingeki no Kyojin, that was quite a fantastic episode. Some of the things coming out of that might have been even bigger than a lot of the things coming out of episode 20 that day. Certainly that final bombshell, Eren, if you want to save Armin and Mikasa, you have to go through with this. Insane. And then, of course, the whole possibility of these paths that transcend space and time. It just opened up a whole new gate, right? And yeah, that really allowed for some really exciting possibilities and discussion in that last episode. So I'm excited to see how it all plays out going into this. So before I get into that, if you are interested in full length for this episode or early access to the content on the channel, consider checking out the Patreon page, checking out some of the links, perhaps something might catch your eye. Also consider checking out the pinned comment. It does have the link to the Patreon page and it does have links to my social media. So I think that's about it. I'm just really eager and excited to get to this final episode of part 2. It feels damn good to get to this point. So I hope you enjoy. Shingeki no Kyojin. Match. Eren and the Attack Titan, huh?
進撃の巨人壁の中で人を愛せそれができなければ繰り返すだけだ同じ歴史を同じ過ちを
To break the cycle.
ミカサやアルミみんなを救いたいなら使命を全うしろさあわからない誰の記憶だろう
Oh! Now that raises the question. That book. Who published that book? Is it just a common book that's normal or available outside to anyone? Outside of the walls, that is. That transition, though, from that specific moment in time to that frame or that picture in the book.
そうだ我々でさえ事の大きさを測りかねている状態にあるのだならばまた民を騙すレース王がやったように何も知らない民をこの壁の中で飼おうというのか我々には何の大義があってレース王から王冠を
Spot on. You have to tell the public.
公表しましょう100年前レース王が民から奪った記憶を100年後の民にお返しするだけです
巨人の力で民衆の記憶を改ざんし壁の外の人類は滅亡したと思い込ま
He looks damn good in a suit.
だが人類は滅んでなどおらず
それで町の反応は
様々ですそのまま受け取るもの笑い飛ばすもの
Fair enough.
未だ平成権に異を唱え陰謀論を結びつけ吹聴する
That's also fair enough.
私たちが巨人を恐れ憎み、どうかこの世から消えてなくなれと願ったのと同じように世界中の人々が我々を人ではなく有害な化け物とみなしたその結果あの地獄が繰り返されるのだとしたら
The cycle, the hellish cycle.
我々が死滅するまで地獄は終わらない
Red hair guy.
マルロ・フロイデンベルクは俺と同じキューボ入団の新兵でその中でも俺たちをよくまとめてく
He
れた
did. He held strong.
絶望的ででも最後はあそこに行ったことを後悔しただろ
ありがとう
This guy keeps it real, man.
笑ってやるから
なんでそんなことを
本当のことを言うべきだろ。お前じゃなく団長がふさわしいと思った。でもそれは俺だけじゃない。みんなだ。報告書を読んだ誰もがそう思った。
Yeah.
なんでエルヴィンじゃないんだって。
お前がアルミンの何を知ってるって言うんだ。言ってみろ。
知らないな。俺は幼馴染。
Yeah, right. Outside
で
opinion.
もなんでアルミンが選ばれたかはわかる。お前ら二人とリヴァイ兵長が市場に流され、注射薬を私物化し、合理性に欠ける判断を下したからだ。要は大事なものを捨てることができなかったからだろう。その点ミカサはまだ大人だった。最終的には諦めた。
She did. She accepted it. Oh. Jean boy. That's a fair point as well.
これから補充する調査兵団には本当のことを言えよ。俺みてえな腰抜けが間違って入ってこねえようにな。エルヴィン団長なしでこれからどうするつもりなんだよ。
Oh, damn. He's getting loud.
俺みてえな雑魚、寝踏みする権利くらいはあるだろう。
I think he's spot on about that.
フロックが正しい。
Flock.
エルヴィン団長が生き延びるべきだった。この状況を変えることができるのは僕じゃない。
But it's not going to be just on his shoulders, though.
正しい選択なんて未来は誰にもわからないはずだ。可能性はいくらでも広がっている。きっと壁の外には自由が。
おいガキども。
Gaki. Oh man, that. Look at her, man. Regal. Queen Historia. Floch.
地下室にあったものは何だ。希望だったのか、それとも絶望か。敵は果てしなく強大だった。このまま何も変わらなければまたあの惨状が繰り返される。
Oh, she's gonna touch Aaron.
俺にはヒストリアを犠牲にする覚悟がない。
Wow. She looks amazing. Holy shit.
こんなこと。
It's happening.
私は壁の外から来た。
Oh.
あなた方と同じユミルの民です。
His side of the story.
今すぐ壁に攻めてきた巨人を殺してください。妻や子供たちが壁の民が食われてしまう前に。
She was listening. And she's under control. Oh. Exact same expression as his dad. Right, the whole still no English. The whole concept of him actually reliving those memories as that person. Holy shit, that scene. Oh, look at this. Time skip, right? Seagulls. Right? Wow. Wow. That's how slow it was.
おい。楽園送りにされた俺たちの同胞だ。
Oh, fellow patriot. Flock, Flock. I think Flock is more of a German pronunciation, right? Holy shit. Oh. Is that the... That is the wall, isn't it?
ここの場所でエルディア人は巨人にされた。そして
Beyond that is the sea. Oh my god. Look at him though. Armin. Ah, right, the conch. It was Armin who's Oh, the cold open for episode 1. That's so cute. Iconic.
商人が一生かけても取り尽くせないほどの巨大な塩の湖があるって
He's so detached though.
言ったこと間違ってなかっただろ。ヘレン、これ見てよ。壁の向こうには
海があって海の向こうには自由がある
Right. He tried saying that and he got that memory. Oh.
とそう信じてた。でも違った。海の向こうにいるのは敵だ。何もかも親父の記憶で見たものと同じなんだ。
This kid is so tormented.
向こうにいる敵全部殺せば俺たち自由になれるのか。
Whoa. That's the shot. Whoa. Is that Mikasa? Oh, this is new? Whoa. 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 There's a shot like that in the first ever opening, right? Whoa. Those kids though in the uniforms. Oh. Oh. Transcends space and time. Okay, so season 3, part 2, the finale. It's kind of crazy that I'm here now. But yeah, I mean, I think I simply have to talk about this ending. It's a totally different type of ending. It kind of felt like they pulled the curtain back just a bit to give me a sense of the tone for the final season, perhaps. No, I certainly prefer this to the mid-season finale, post-credit scene. This one is much more open to interpretation, rather than just straight up showing me a definitive turning point, the rooftop. So I'm certainly happy in that sense. So it's kind of like a mixed bag of imagery, right? Some of it from season 1 of the show. Some of it from some of these flashbacks they've shown me. Some of the imagery in the beginning of the outro, it's also from season 1, right? Like the images of the lands beyond the walls, right? And a lot of the imagery's it's reoccurring imagery throughout the series at this point. And of course, it's depicted in that book that Armin had, that he got from his grandpa, actually. I said it's, how did his parents get it? But I just remembered it was actually his grandpa that gave it to him. I'll get to that in a bit. Just let's leave that to the side for now. But of course, there's also, clearly there's some new imagery in there. Looks like it's from a totally different time. You see trenches. You see harsh and unforgiving, depiction of war, right? And wow. But the thing I found really interesting is that they're showing these really brutal scenes, right? At one point they're showing like cities being attacked I think maybe even in the beginning it might have actually been Shiganshina, right? The first attack. Or it could have been a totally different place. I know later on they're showing other people, getting attacked or a city under attack. They're showing children, right? Dead children. There's that one child that's under the rubble, right? Appears to be dead. So a lot of death and destruction being depicted. Now, again, I'm not sure if this is one of the other nations or if this is actually Marley being attacked, right? And the thing to note here is that they decided to use shots of Eren from season 1, right? Before he joined the scouts, right? This is the phase of him just being absolutely full of rage, right? I think it's kind of hard to miss that they're using that particular version of Eren, right? In these scenes, right? It's kind of going back and forth. They're showing death and destruction. Then it goes to Eren. And there's even that one shot of his eyes opening up, right? That was like the final shot of him. And then it kind of goes to those 3 final shots. And those 3 final shots, they really highlighted, right? First of all, of course, the physical manifestation of these pads, right? And there's 8 of them. If you count them, there's 8 of them, right? Of course, that makes sense. There's 9 Titans, one of them being the founding Titan, so the 8 pads being the other 8. But they showed that they focused on that, right? It starts zooming in, or it starts filling out the frame, and it kind of sits on that for a few seconds. I mean, clearly, they clearly it's going to play a part in this final season, in season 4, right? Perhaps a major part, because it is the final shot of that outro, right? And then, it kind of fades to black, and then it comes back, and it's showing me, I think, 2 shots of Eren. One of them is certainly Eren. He's in this hall. Again, should be noted that he's by himself. And then the last shot, now, my first thought is that is Eren, but he's holding the conch that Armin had in that final scene, right? Unless it is Armin. But, my first thought is that both those shots are of Eren. And he's being shown alone once again. Much like, the opening shot, the cold open of Season 3, Episode 1. Again, now they go back and it came full circle. He wasn't alone. But again, they are showing him alone in these final shots. But yeah, quickly circling back to the point I made about flashing back and forth, showing death and destruction in potentially Marley, or it could be another nation altogether. But, they are kind of going back and forth, showing us Eren. And, again, I thought that shot of his eyes opening up, that was quite poignant. So, earlier on, one of the other shots kind of, my first thought again, that it's Mikasa holding a gun or firing a gun, right? A rifle. So, I mean, they've done an adequate job of establishing the next conflict, right? The next progression of this story. And, that was one of the questions, or that was one of the things that was kind of clear after that day, episode 20, that, they are setting up one final Marley Eldian conflict, perhaps, right? Once again, they're at each other's throats. And yeah, again, this outro seems to be showing a place under attack. And there's also that one shot that stood out of the students in the dark uniforms. Later on, one of them's pinned under a rock, looks to be dead. There's parents that are crying over perhaps a dead body of their child. Again, lots of death and destruction. And, the chilling part is that they are implying, based on some of the imagery here, going back and forth, they are implying that Eren might have a major role to play in this death and destruction. And then, of course, that scene at the beach, that also kind of made it quite clear the path the story is about to take, right? I'll get to that. It's a bittersweet moment. One of the most bittersweet moments of the series, right? So I think this outro did a decent job at outlining loosely outlining the path this final season is about to take. I think the standout shot or moment from this outro is that iconic shot at this point of the pads, the eight paths, right, that are leading to the coordinate, the founding titan. Originally shown in season 2, episode 10, the children, after Ymir's having her rebirth, right, and she kind of gets transported or experiences this a different plane of existence. A rare thing to be seeing the physical manifestation of this, right? So they made a point of highlighting that shot. So I think it's safe to assume it's gonna play a big part. And again, this kind of goes back to my discussion from the last episode about the story, kind of exploring the concept of transcending temporality, right? So that certainly has me excited that they are focusing on this, or they've made a point of focusing on that frame as one of the final shots of this outro, because I think this idea or this concept of transcending temporality, right, or transcending space and time, and a potential of a dimension or plane of existence that that time might exist all at once, right? Past, present, and future. Again, this goes back to my discussion from the last episode. So I am excited that they are, that it looks like it's going to explore that even further in this final season, and that it might play a major role in this final season. And once again, this episode does go into that whole aspect of Eren, experiencing past memories, right? But more so than just experiencing them, reliving them, right? As that person, as that individual. And in this case, his own father, right? Grisha Jaeger. I'll get to that scene. I mean, it's not time travel in the traditional sense. You're not getting into a machine and traveling to the past or the future, or a specific time or moment in time. It's a different kind of time travel, and this concept has been around since episode 1. All that time ago, it was clear, and I brought this up in my discussion for episode 1, that clearly Eren is seeing some of these things that are happening in the future, right? And this is even before he became a Titan shifter. And I explore some of these thoughts in my discussion for the last episode. But yeah, it was clear since then that there is something going on here. And, at this point in time, they're finally kind of getting into that stuff. It really, the ending to this last episode really brought it back to the forefront. Now, moving on to the episode itself, I thought it was, it was a much needed, slower episode after, again, the bombastic nature of these past 5 or 4 episodes. Just insane, right? So certainly the right time for this type of episode. Once again, I've said it before, a breather for the audience and a breather for the characters, right? Allows for some reflection, some introspection, right? And allows them to kind of try to make sense of the things that have happened in their lives. And, and again, the things that are happening to these characters are happening over the span of just days, right? So, right then, so Eren Jaeger, man, I'm concerned, man. I'm concerned for this dude. But first of all, how about the character progression and the phenomenal, character development? This is just such a nuanced character arc at this point in time. It appears that he's changing as a character once again, right? Not too long ago in season 3, part 1, around episodes 7, 8, and 9, there was quite a substantial character progression, right? He kind of snapped out of this phase he was going through. He kind of, again, it was exemplified in that scene of him physically beating out that brat, right? And then just being dialed in. But now, once again, it's flipped again. Now he's changed again. And this demeanor, remember my discussion for episode 17, I believe, Hero? In the discussion for that, I was talking about how Eren might just completely change and he might completely become detached because part of him has died now. And at that point in time, I legitimately felt that Armin has died. His character at this moment in time is how I kind of envisioned him after Armin's death. But he's kind of he ended up getting to that point, but for a totally different reason. The signs were there in the last episode. And now it's like, it's a full-blown change, right? He's detached. He looks exhausted, right? The moment he got those memories, everything changed, right? Even his surroundings have changed now. They've gone from the physical surroundings to something beyond that, right? People or characters are shaped by their surroundings, right? And for that reason, I was bringing up the fact that his surroundings are now beyond just the physical form, right? These memories, he's haunted by some of these memories, and there's such sadness there, right? Again, this episode kind of had a strong sense of melancholy kind of coursing through it, right? And Eren's demeanor and his sadness and detachment from his surroundings, right? It's really tough to see. It's really sad to see him go through this. But in that sense, it also kind of reminds me of Commander Smith in The Perfect Game. That scene of Levi explaining the situation and how incredibly bad it looks. Commander Smith doesn't say anything because he knows, what has to be done next. So he's just kind of standing there listening to Levi, right? He doesn't interject. He just listens because he knows inside that everything is about to change. It's certainly quite the metamorphosis, right? The character he is now, or the person he is now, is miles and miles away from the person he used to be, right? Long gone are the days of him, having this incredible rage, deep within, to exterminate the Titans. In this episode, you see him totally opposite, right? You see the opposite of that. He's sympathetic towards this Titan they come across, this pure Titan, because he knows now, after having these memories, he knows just how tragic all of it is, right? And that this is a fellow patriot. But I think him saying that is also crucial in the path that might be taken next. So, right, so if he's calling this pure Titan a fellow patriot, you have to assume he's considering himself a patriot, right? And, that day, episode 20, really defined and outlined the cause of the patriots, right? The revolution they wanted to lead. And of course, his father was at the center of it all. And of course, the goal was to restore Eldia, right, to its former glory. And one of the main aspects of that was to take down the Marley Nation, right? So, staying on that train of thought, his target is Marley at this point in time. Though he also, specified, he didn't really specify Marley as, there's a scene, again, it's a sad scene. It's a bit of a haunting scene. But the shot of him pointing and saying that if we go ahead and kill all our enemies on that side of the sea, is it going to bring us freedom, right? So again, this episode and even the last episode made it clear that it's not just Marley Nation. The whole world is against Eldia, right, or Eldians. So, in that sense, he's not even sure if, this potential action they're about to take or he's about to take is going to lead to freedom, that elusive freedom, right? Death and destruction is not a guarantee to freedom, right? So you can see that he's definitely heading in that path, but he's not even sure himself yet if this is a surefire path to freedom. So it appears that he has a clear understanding of the external conflict and his inner self within that conflict, right? Now, if his fellow scouts agree on that understanding is a totally different it's a totally different question, right? But it appears that at this point in time, the story is about or setting up a potential dramatic representation of some of the personal changes or the changes he's feeling in his personal evolution at this point in time. Again, it's a really good setup episode, and the path is kind of clear at this point in time. Isayama's given us a clear path, I'd say. In season 3 part 1, around the episode 7, 8, and 9 stretch, I mentioned that sometimes characters have a certain sense of or they have a certain philosophy or a certain sense of morality, but then at a critical moment, right, they feel the need to deviate from that, right, an internal contradiction, right? So in turn that gives the story dynamic, and it's certainly about to give it that. And the past, present, and future is another set of dynamics that can be kind of looked at here, right? Who Eren used to be, who Eren is right now, and who Eren might be in the future. I think one of the things Isayama-san is quite good at is the concept of introducing progressive complications, right? There's more and more conflict, right, as the forces of antagonism become greater and greater. And as Hanji mentioned, at one point in time, it appeared that our biggest concern was just the Titans, but since then it's been elevated to the whole world. Now, staying on Eren, let's go to that scene, him and Historia making contact or touching, right? The moment the moment that popped into my mind, or the realization set in that she's about to touch him, oh my god. I mean, I've been asking for this. I remember, I was I'm not even sure, I think it might have been recently, maybe in episode 12, the discussion for episode 12, I was hoping that they go back to this scene at some point, because it was clear that Rod is leaving out some of the details here, right, as to present a more favorable narrative to Historia and Eren even, right? But going back to this scene really allowed Eren to see his father in a different light, right? Perhaps maybe kind of remove some of that burden, some of that guilt he's been carrying for a long time. Because I mean, to us, the audience, it was clear he must have had a reason to do that, right? But Eren didn't know that. Up until this point, up until this happened, he still believed that, his father had a mission, and he goes straight in and he takes the coordinate or the founding titan. But as I surmised, it looked like he was pleading, right? You could see that in the animated face of his, right? Even though they didn't show us, or you couldn't hear the dialogue at that point in time. This is in season 3, episode 6, Sin, right? But yeah, he told them straight up that he's a fellow subject of Ymir. He's an Eldian, or he's a fellow Eldian, a subject of Ymir. And he asked for, their help. Though he specifically said King of the Walls, right? Even though he's addressing Frida, he's addressing her as the King of the Walls. And the king certainly makes an appearance, because, it should be noted that it looked like Frida was kind of interested in in this, right? Because she did have the same notions as her father or, her uncle before her, that, that she is going to try to make a change. But of course, anyone who's tried, including Yuri, they all get overtaken by this first king of the walls, right? And you see it happen. You actually see the physical change happen. And it looked like she was trying to resist, right? And she was listening to Grisha, but she just couldn't resist, and she got overtaken by this first king. And this is depicted in the eyes, right? And the facial animation and expressions. She's like fighting against it, and then it kind of just goes to a neutral expression, and that's her being taken over by this first king. And of course, at that point in time, Grisha had to take matter into his own hands. So Eren finally got to see the definitive truth on that. So that part of it is clear, Grisha's side of the story. That's clear now. But the thing that's still throwing me off is the expression. It's a strange expression on Grisha's face, and then you see it mimicked, in Eren's face as everyone's kind of looking at him, and then Historia notices the strange expression on Eren's face, and that's because he's not just reliving that memory, he's kind of being transported in a moment in time, and he's kind of seeing it through his father's eyes. So that face or that expression is certainly throwing me off. Is it even possible that this still isn't the full story of that scene, and Grisha is seeing something else happen, or was that just his reaction to seeing Frida kind of being taken over in real time? Like, he could see the thing I saw, her being open to this, or she seemed like she was listening, and then she's trying to fight it, but then she gets overtaken. Is this his reaction to that? Perhaps that could be an explanation for that really strange expression on his face, and on Eren's face, an extension to that on Eren's face. So yeah, and again, that scene really reiterates the concept of him not just, having these memories kind of leak into his mind, but him actually being, transported in a moment in time and reliving that moment, right? Again, in the last episode or in that day, he comes out of those, memories, and for a few seconds, he doesn't know who he is, right? So, and then, this all started back in season 3, episode 5, right? The first time I saw something like this happen, him reliving a moment as Frida, right? Looking back at himself in a mirror, but he's looking back at himself as Frida. And that from that point on, I said, this is such an enticing and exciting possibility here, because you really could use this as such a great exposition tool, right? And a tool to explore history and backstory, and potentially give us the definitive history and truth about this LD and Marley conflict, and in that sense, how far back can this go? These memories, could it even go as far back as to Ymir Fritz? That would be really exciting. And, I feel like this is perhaps the only method they could even explore a history that old, right? How else unless, they straight up just, it wouldn't be in line, with the stuff I've seen or the exposition I've seen in this show so far, that all of a sudden it's just going to go into a backstory of Ymir Fritz, right? Something has to lead to that. And I feel like this method of him reliving memories or being transported in a moment in time is the best case scenario, right? To get the definitive truth on these things and, get the definitive tale or the definitive story on Ymir Fritz and how all of this happened. And, imagine if they could even go back to this whole concept of the deal with the devil, or this devil type figure, or this other being, right? So the potential is there. Now, one of the things I found most interesting about this episode is this red-haired guy. Now, I'll try his name again. It sounded like there might have been two different pronunciations, Flock or Flock. So it certainly sounds like, no, I know a lot of these names are meant to be German names. So Flock does kind of have a German tone to it. But yeah, I think his perspective is understandable. It might be harsh, it might cut deep, but it's necessary. And I think it represents, you know, it represents some of these red shirts and the side characters that are usually used as almost inconsequential, right? Just there to die. So having this character kind of step up and call out the behavior of some of these main characters like Eren and Mikasa, more so Eren, because he did say, Mikasa did eventually, give in or give up after hearing out Hanji. He's right to question them. Let's not forget Mikasa and Eren, they were certainly out of line. At that on that rooftop, and I like that he didn't back down once even Eren stepped up to him. Right, he actually got even more defiant, and he like kind of stood tall. So I completely understand this perspective. I think it's necessary, and it certainly adds another element of realism to this ensemble dynamic, right? And it looks like he's going to be around because later on, after he's finally got a haircut, doesn't look as goofy anymore, but it looks like he's still part of the scouts, right? He didn't retire, or he didn't, resign. Sorry, not retire, resign or anything. So he's certainly there. So I think having him be part of the scouts is it's going to continue to provide this necessary yet harsh opinion or perspective to things. Someone that does question these characters, someone that does kind of go against the grain, right? And rightfully questions them, and doesn't feel the need, or doesn't feel like he needs to follow everything they say or do, right? Or he doesn't have to agree with them on everything. And I think the thing to note here is that Levi didn't really step in until much later. So, Heicho kind of let it play out, right? He kind of stepped in at the end after it all kind of reached its natural conclusion, right? And also Jean Boy stepped in. And again, how about Jean, right? Though I think one thing that was kind of out of line is the fact that he's having such a strong go at Armin himself, because Armin, he straight up even admitted it to Flock that they should have picked the commander. So to be that harsh to Armin, who had no choice in this, is a bit out of line, but you can understand his frustrations. And like I said, most people back home, they know the commander, and you see they show that shot of some of these other scouts or military personnel. You can see the looks in their faces. They're a bit jaded about this. And in that sense, this character just kind of came out of thin air, right? He appeared in episode 12 of or the mid-season finale, and he's had quite a character arc since then. Quite a bit of development. He started off as this naive and hopeful and happy individual, who's ready to join the scouts on this crusade, right? Ready to take back the walls. Then he goes there and he gets to experience hell and the cruel world they live in, right? The nihilistic world they're part of. Now, that certainly changed him, right? So he certainly got the answer he wanted, right? He asked them, how come you guys are so different? And then he's like, oh, maybe I'll ask later. He has his answer. It also appears that he has some tremendous survivor's guilt himself, right? Because he straight up believed or stated that the only reason I'm alive is so I could, bring the commander back up here and bring him back to life. He felt that was the reason he survived this suicide charge, right? But then they brought back, or they give the serum to Armin, and now, his survival has lost all reason, right? So that survival's guilt is tremendous probably for him as well. So certainly he has his own demons as well, I think one of the main aspects of this finale was the concept that the truth is a destructive force or a tough pill to swallow. I feel like there's 3 really good examples of it in this episode. First of all, of course, staying on the red-haired fellow, Flock, him bringing the harsh reality and being harsh yet truthful about some of these things. First, he was quite truthful with Hitch, right? He straight up just said, I'm sure at the end he regretted that, being there, and you could see it affected Hitch quite a bit, right? And Jean even kind of calls him out for it, but then he retaliates or replies by saying someone has to tell the truth. I think he's right, but and the second part of it being, the general public finding out about the truth of being these subjects of Ymir, and and then that causing paranoia and chaos, right? Because come on, it's totally understandable that so many of these people might find that so far-fetched and concerning, right? That the rest of the world considers them monsters, and beyond that, they're just finding out that there is a rest of the world, right? So another tough pill to swallow. And then of course the bombshell for a lot of these characters, Mikasa and Armin, specifically, as Eren points out, that beyond the sea is not freedom, it's just more enemies. And that also goes back to this question of was it hope in the basement or despair that they uncovered? The older journalist had a few interesting thoughts, right? He had quite a bit of concern about potentially being these monsters, or being considered these monsters that people might not stop until they're exterminated, right? Or the enemy might not stop until they're all exterminated, and this hellish cycle keeps continuing, right? They brought up the concept of these unbreakable or unstoppable cycles, right? A few times throughout this episode as well. So yeah, in that sense, at this point in time, they might even be thankful for these walls and that they are in here, right? Protected for the time being inside these walls from these enemies, from all sides. Just imagine finding out that you could turn into monsters. They've hated these titans for 100 years. Now they find out that those titans are the same as them, the same people, that they also have the potential to turn into those titans. So yeah, you can understand how that would create a state of panic, paranoia, chaos, right? Now, a thing that had me really excited in the beginning of the episode is that transition from Kruger and the sunset behind him to the illustration in Armin's book, or Armin's grandpa's book. More on that in a bit, but I had to go back and look at that frame again. Initially, I thought that was the exact same sunset, in that illustration. So the moment I thought that was the same illustration, I had some crazy thoughts in my mind. That's why I reacted in that manner. But it looks like it wasn't the exact same shot. It was just transition from that sunset to the depiction of a sunset in or the illustration of a sunset in that specific book. Because at that point I was thinking of some crazy possibilities. But again, staying on this topic, the book. Now, who published this book? I think I've asked this question before of how his grandpa even got this book. But yeah, again, how did his grandpa get this book? This is certainly not something that was published inside the walls, right? It must have come from outside. So it might have existed inside the walls right from the beginning, right? Of before the creation of the walls. Someone must have brought it over from Marley. as this king, known as the first king of the walls, brought over a bunch of other Eldians and some of these other noble families, right? Someone might have brought it over, right? And somehow Armin's grandpa got a hold of a copy. The book itself feels like just a common book that like a geography book that you might find in a textbook, right? That you might find in a school, right? So I feel like it might have been brought over from Marley, and then somehow Armin's grandpa got a hold of it, right? And then he gave it to Armin. But the question becomes, is this again a chance thing, or was Armin always meant to get this? Was something put in motion so Armin gets this at some point? Again, I'm trying to go back to the concept of these paths, transcending space and time, and memories being shared and sent, right? So, again, I'm not sure how he got a hold of it. I'm not even sure if the anime is going to go into that at any point, because Armin's grandpa's long gone, so I don't think they're going to go into that, how he got a hold of this book. But it certainly wasn't published inside, right, the walls. So I think my best guess is that, yeah, someone brought it over. There might have been even others. There might have been a bunch of other, textbooks. But most of them are kind of hidden or destroyed. But this one somehow got out, or it got leaked, and somehow Armin's grandpa got it. And then he gave it to Armin. And staying on Armin, let's move on to one of the most fulfilling and emotionally touching scenes of the entire series. Them finally seeing the sea. Or coming across the sea for the first time. And I thought it was, I can only speak for myself, but I thought it was quite effective. This is a major moment in the progression of the story, right? In the history of the story, or the lore of the story, that they are finally going beyond, or going as far as they've ever been, and seeing this wonderful and almost magical thing for the first time, right? The sea. And I thought the choice to have no music, that was so effective. Again, it brought me to tears. It was so deeply affecting. It really was. And of course, it was beautiful to see them kind of enjoy the beach, right? That shot of Jean, Connie, and Sasha, such a great shot, such a fun shot. I just love those characters. And of course, Armin and Mikasa. But then I mentioned earlier that it was a bittersweet moment, because unfortunately, as much as he would have liked to, Eren cannot enjoy this moment anymore. His mind is in a totally different place. He's seen this stuff already, right? Through his father's memories. But again, getting these memories has changed everything for Eren. Fortunately, it didn't really represent freedom. Getting to the sea did not represent freedom for Eren anymore, because he knows that at the other side of the sea are enemies, right? And more than just Marley, all these other nations that despise the Eldian people, right? Now, speaking of this Marley Eldian final conflict that's potentially being set up here. Well, not potentially, it is being set up here. It is going in that direction. Eren is certainly going in that direction, right? Now, the natural question becomes how are they going to meet again? Now, could there be a situation that the history kind of repeats itself, right? The concept of a cycle repeating itself over and over, right? Could I see a callback to the opening of the series, and could I see Armin's Colossal Titan kind of showing up at Marley, right? And of course, just like Bertolt's Colossal Titan had Reiner, right, as the 1-2, Armin's Colossal could have Shingeki no Kyojin, Eren's Titan, Attack Titan, as the 1-2. So I think that could be a cool potential. That could be an interesting potential to have a callback to the first episode, but it's flipped this time. Now it's 2 Titans from the Eldian side. I mean, they're all Eldians, but like from Paradis, the Colossal Armin's Colossal Titan and the Attack Titan, Eren's Attack Titan showing up now, right, on Marley. And just like Reiner, Bertolt, and Annie, they could potentially use all that chaos to infiltrate, right? So it could be quite an interesting callback, right? And on that day, Marley was reminded. Now, even though it sounds like a fascinating concept or a really exciting one, it's not really practical, is it? Coming up on Wall Maria and then coming up on Marley, those are 2 totally separate things, right? Marley is fortified most likely, and I saw them in Grisha's backstory. So at this point in time, in the current timeline, you're not going to be able to, just walk up on them and surprise them, right? And especially after Zeke and Reiner have returned, and most likely facing the consequences of failing their mission, right? Because they did fail, but they also they have intel, right? So they know that they can report back that okay, they have 2 Titans, so they have to be ready for a potential Titan attack, just in case. Regardless, I think they're equipped to probably handle that. It wouldn't be a shocker to them. It probably wouldn't be a surprise attack. Now, if that's not the approach, and it's certainly not the practical approach, how else could they get there, right? Do the scouts, they don't even know how to navigate, right? A ship. As far as I know, they don't know how to navigate a ship. So could they potentially hijack one of the Marley ships if they do send more, if they do decide to send more Eldians to Paradise, right? And, they could kind of jump in and, in that sense, even save some of these fellow Eldians and also in the process hijack a ship. But then if you do that, I think it's a good idea to keep them alive, right? Or keep a few of them alive as hostages to take you there, to take you to Marley. I'm not see, and the reason I'm bringing up the concept of the scouts or this side going there now is because they've set it up like that, right? Especially Eren's final question, right? But and also, of course, the outro. They're showing some kind of some type of conflict going on. A lot of death and destruction. So there's telltale signs here that they are going to go to Marley. But again, are more people going to join the scouts, or is it just going to be these 9 scouts? Yeah. Like a head-on attack is just not practical. That's not the best plan of action. They're still outnumbered, right, in terms of Titans, and then on top of the Titans, they have all kinds of other tech, right, military tech. So going at them head-on is just not an option. That would be stupid. As exciting as a potential Colossal Titan showing up at Marley, just like episode 1, it's not the best idea. So they do have to get there, but they could replicate the same strategy the Warriors had, right? To get there and then infiltrate, right? So let's see. But in order to do that, they need to get on a ship and they have to get to Marley. And again, as far as I know, they don't know how to navigate, so they would have to hijack one of the ships, if it comes to Paradise or Paradis, and keep a few of them alive, and make them take you there. So that's one of the strong possibilities that I can think of at this moment in time. Like I said before, double agents, sleeper agents, infiltrating. This story is so perfect for you, right? I've been talking about that exciting concept since season 1, right? So yeah, I think that probably is the best plan of action, to infiltrate Marley somehow, especially given the numbers, the limited numbers of the scouts they have, right? Just 9 at the moment, unless of course they do get more. But I think if you start adding a bunch more to the ranks, then the concept of infiltrating doesn't really. It's just not going to be that effective if you have a big squad of them. 9 of them, even 9 of them seems like quite a bit, right, to infiltrate. But maybe you don't have to send all 9 in there, right? Not at first, at least. Maybe you send a few in there. That could be a possibility, right? So once again, the idea of double agents or sleeper agents infiltrating is quite the enticing one and quite the logical one in this sense, right? Or in this case, they simply do not have the capacity to, go at Marley head on. They just don't. So this is the other possibility here. I think that's about it for. So I think that's about it for the things I kind of wanted to touch on. So let's kind of move on to potentials, right? The final season potentials are things I need from this story. Let's kick it off. The first thing, one of the first few things that comes to mind is the backstory, right? I need Annie, Reiner, Bertolt, even Marcel, and then Zeke. I need all of their backstories, right? And how they got into all of this and how they became part of this initiative, right? The warrior group or initiative. And their specific journeys to, becoming part of that crew. And then, of course, Zeke, like I said, he is I feel like he is one of the most important figures of this story at this point in time, given the fact that he has royal blood, right? And of course, just through the fact that he is Grisha's son, right? And Aaron's half-brother. So he is undeniably one of the most important figures of this story at this point in time. And I've said it a few times now, I think his royal blood, his royalty is going to play a part in the story. It's impossible for it not to play a part. And in my last discussion, I laid out the possibility, right? That there is another person of royal blood other than Historia, and that's Zeke Yeager, Aaron's half-brother. I feel like their backstories and exploring, a Marley backstory, that alone could, take up half a season, or like half a, how season 3 had 2 parts. That could take up its own part. That's a feeling I'm getting. But surely they could probably do it much quicker than that. That's more of like a hope of mine. I'm trying to get like a comprehensive backstory on all of them and some comprehensive material on Marley, right? Now, of course, the focus has been this squad, the Armin, Mikasa, and Aaron, and everyone else in extension to them. So, of course, they're not going to put that kind of time into the backstories of the Marley people or the Marley side, even though, of course, they are Eldians. But I feel like they do deserve a solid amount of time, for their backstories. And speaking of Marley, I need to see who this person is, who ended up taking Ymir's Titan, right? Because again, they confirmed that Ymir was ready for the ritual, right? The Titan transfer ritual, and someone else got it, right? Someone else in line got it. So I need to see who that is. I need to see this mysterious 9th Titan. They still haven't shown me. So I feel like that's going to be a big deal, that they still haven't shown me yet. So excited to get to that. And then, of course, this whole concept of paths that transcend space and time. That's one of the most fascinating and exciting things that they've brought out or, established in the recent episodes And of course, they alluded to something like this even back in the first episode of the series. Eren experiencing memories, or seeing flashes of the future and perhaps even the past. So they set it up a long time ago, but now they're really bringing it back up in these past few episodes, right? So I definitely want to see that take center stage as well. And they alluded to that in the outro. They took, there was a major focus on that one frame again, right? The physical manifestation of the pads, the eight lines, right? So looking forward to that. And this potential different plane of existence, right? Ymir ended up there after her rebirth for a bit. And in that sense, even at this moment in time, in Eren's current detached and exhausted and sad state, is it possible that he's still getting flashes of the future, right? And you mix some of that, and you mix some of them, and not some, a lot of the memories. It really does make sense that he is like this now, so detached and just depressed and exhausted. Again, it is quite similar to Bran, the three-eyed raven, once he did become the three-eyed raven proper. And of course, I drew comparisons to Interstellar and the fifth dimension, and the concept of time happening all at once, right? The past, present, and future. Could this plane of existence, right, have similarities to that? And then, of course, as I brought up earlier, I need to see the definitive story on Ymir, right? The founder, Ymir Fritz. I need to see the definitive story on the Eldians and the Marleys, or the Marley Nation, right? And how Marley pulled off this Seven Titan swing, right? And clearly, a few of the Titans had to defect for that to happen. But how did they pull that off? That's the big question, right? Because they showed there was infighting, right? Eldians against Eldians. That frame of the three girls, who I still believe to be Maria, Rose, and Cinna. I've considered that since my season 2 episode 1 discussion a few years ago. That was my theory from back then. So it would be great to get a definitive look at that, right? If possible. Again, I brought up the possibility of how far can these memories go, and how far can Eren potentially, experience these memories, because that really does provide the definitive method to get the actual history, right, of some of these things, the definitive truth. And of course, going back to Marley, I just kind of want to see the current state of Marley. That's an exciting prospect, because again, I only saw it through Grisha's flashback, right? And Grisha was a young child then, so it's been 20 years more maybe since then. So yeah, I mean, seeing the current state of that, and I'm pretty sure I am going to see the current state of Marley, because they simply have to show me at this point, because Zeke and Reiner and the Scout Titan, shouldn't forget the Scout Titan, the MVP, right, of the battle for Shiganshina, or at least for that side, he rescued both of them. They are going to return, and in the current timeline, and they're going to have to explain how it all, played out. And they might even have to take some sort of punishment. So let's see. I think that's about it. I think that might be it for season 3, part 2 of Attack on Titan. It's a strange feeling, to be honest. And it's an exhilarating feeling and exciting to be done. But yeah, exciting. Really exciting to be caught up to season 3, part 2. And if I remember something, I'll bring it up, I guess, in the first episode of season 4. So if you enjoyed it, consider dropping a like, consider dropping some comments, give me your thoughts. If you are interested in full length or early access to the content on my channel, consider checking out the Patreon page, and check out some of the different listings there. Perhaps something might catch your eye, and in doing so, you'll be supporting the channel. And also, you could also support the channel by subscribing to the channel. There is a schedule in place now, so yeah, consider subscribing to the channel. And of course, consider checking out the pinned comment. It has the links to the Patreon page, it has links to the social media. So as always, thank you for checking that out. I hope to see you soon. Take it easy.